Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator. Well, before I begin my contribution, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Silvana Koch-Mehren and the entire team at Women Political Leaders Global Forum, and also to thank the Permanent Mission of Italy that has made this meeting possible, and in particular to Senator Lanzillotta. Thank you so very much for bringing together so many people, so many important people to speak and to call the issue by its name. Our focus on the challenges faced by migrant and refugee women comes at a particular time in the history of Europe and our world. It is a time in which we are witnessing increasing uncertainty within and across our nations, and a worrying trend towards dangerous forms of aggressive populism and inflammatory rhetoric. For this reason, I am particularly proud of the fact that during Malta's recent presidency of the Council of the European Union, it was made clear in no uncertain terms that addressing the phenomenon of migration is of critical concern to all of Europe, the Mediterranean, Africa, and the Near East. I believe that we must continue with this focus on the movement of people in whatever region of the world, which should be the shared responsibility of the international community and for all of our nations. This is why I believe that we must go deeper in our discussions to understand this phenomenon. I believe that we must highlight the lived experiences of migrants and refugees, such as we have already heard from Sandra, and the particular impact that migration has on our diverse communities and groups. This has been my experience over many years of interacting with migrants in Malta and even beyond. There are so many stories, so many narratives, and so many ways of understanding the complex factors that contribute to migration. Therefore, throughout all of our work, it is essential that we pay attention to specific issues. One very common concern, which touches the lives of so many migrants, focuses upon the issue of gender. Identifying issues of gender is a critical component to develop effective strategies and practical action plans, which must lead to dignified responses to the challenges of migration, as we have already heard from Mr. Grandi. Surely we cannot accept a one-size-fits-all approach. A one-size-fits-all approach does not address the particular experiences of women and girls who are caught up in migration. We must create inclusive policies that safeguard the well-being of each and every person, and which address the specific challenges being faced by female migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. We still have much to do to ensure that migrants are not excluded or made to suffer injustices and discrimination because of failures and grey areas in our policies and in our systems. We must be bold to challenge the status quo. We cannot stand by while women in migration disproportionately face higher levels of precarity, abuse, and exploitation. We must act in favor of equity and equality by putting into practice our global commitment to an approach that is rooted in universal human rights and fundamental freedoms. We must stand up to be counted. We must push for action. We must work in favor of the benefits that are possible when we share a spirit of solidarity. Together, we must be stronger than the threats of exclusion and discrimination. It is with this goal of finding inclusive responses to the situations faced by migrants and refugees that my foundation, that is the President's Foundation for the Wellbeing of Society, has facilitated a migrant-led NGO platform, which is the first of its kind in Malta. Through this platform, my foundation has engaged with diverse migrant groups of different ages, genders, cultures, and backgrounds on issues of education, employment, and advocacy. This migrant-led NGO platform has ensured that the voices and experiences of migrants, including women in particular, are respected and shared, and stimulate positive changes in national policy. One member of the platform is the Migrant Women Association of Malta, which launched a report recently that focuses on the economic struggles being faced by migrant women in Malta. According to the report by the Migrant Women Association of Malta, entitled Stepping Up, an investigation of female asylum seekers and employment in Malta, employment is one of the main sources of concern to female migrants. Women coming from Libya, Syria, Somalia, and Eritrea were surveyed, and of these women, 74.7% received refugee status. Of the women included in the report, 85.7% were unemployed, with the majority of women stating that they were unemployed unwillingly. 46.7% of participants said that they had been searching for a job for over a year. It is important to note that 93.3% of the participants had all attended primary level education. Furthermore, over half of these women completed secondary level education, and almost 1 in 5 obtained a university level degree. An overwhelming 78.6% of participants said that they believed discrimination is the main obstacle to employment. The report states, and I quote, "Discrimination is not only high in the total sample, but also for each and every nation group surveyed." End quote. It is alarming to consider that the implications of such exclusion on the basis of discrimination, which is being faced by these women. Such discrimination makes equitable participation in our economies impossible. Not only do migrant and refugee women and their families suffer because of these unacceptably high levels of prejudice, our communities and societies are suffering too, due to a lack of more inclusive and open economies. Indeed, Malta is experiencing an unprecedented level of economic growth. Therefore, there is a clear need in my own nation for us to promote the inclusion of migrants within the national workforce. My foundation also assisted in the launch of a publication produced by the Jesuit Refugee Services of Malta, entitled No Giving Up, that recounts the experiences of Somali women who were seeking asylum in Malta. These women felt empowered to share their concerns and aspirations, and in the process have inspired others to do the same. A Somali refugee said, and I quote, "In my country, my rights were violated. My life was not mine, but dictated by someone else. If I am to be respected, first I need to be free. Free from the bars surrounding me. Free from being controlled by someone else. Free to run my life." End quote. Last year, I was also invited to launch the autobiography of Farah Abdi, a young transgender woman. This woman had fled her country due to discrimination and the threats of violence she faced as a result of her gender identity. Farah's book, entitled Never Arrive, describes the difficult journey she made across the Libyan desert. She recounts her harrowing experiences, and I quote, "Little did I know that the gates of hell were now wide open. We parted ways with the smugglers from the desert, who handed us over to Libyan smugglers, who now would help us to get to the Libyan capital of Tripoli. They were more ruthless than their counterparts. This became evident when they showed us a torture chamber where people who refused to pay them would be served their punishment. End quote. I am pleased that in Malta, she was able to begin publicly celebrating the fullness of her identity as a transgender woman for whom migration meant the difference between life or death. The narratives of migrants are of essential value, especially when we remember recent comments made by the director of UNHCR Bureau for Europe, who said, and I quote, I'm quoting UNHCR, Mr. Grandi, you must know of this. Many women and girls traveling on their own are entirely exposed, deprived of their family or community to protect them. Even those traveling with family are often vulnerable to abuse. The narratives of such women remind us that their experiences have something profound to teach us. We would be presumptuous to speak on their behalf without first listening to them, valuing their voices, and learning from their lives. Undoubtedly, the narratives of migrant women have an essential contribution to make, to inform our legislation, to advise our policies, and to guide our practices in the area of migration. I urge all stakeholders to listen, to value, and to act upon the experiences of migrant women in order to formulate and implement more efficient and timely strategies which respond to the real needs of migrating women and girls. I must note that some of our authorities are encouraging an irresponsible rhetoric which is fostering a dangerous populist approach. I urge our authorities to use all the power they have to properly inform public perception towards migration. Our solidarity must be put into practice. Our commitment to create a lasting culture to peace and well-being, which embraces people of all ethnicities, of all cultures, and of all genders. Today, the 21st day of September, happens to be the UN Observance Day for Peace. This year's theme is dedicated to respect, safety, and dignity for all. It is in this context that I urge everybody to strive together to build a sustainable culture of positive peace and holistic well-being within our communities, within our nations, and across our world, for the benefit of each and every one of us, of all humanity. Thank you.